Okay, I couldn't help but notice that there is a heck of a lot of YouTube videos about Ridley Scott's latest movie on Napoleon. There's just tons of them, historians attacking them. Most of the reviews have been rather unfavorable, and I wanted to speak about the film for a few minutes. But the subject of this video is not going to be Ridley Scott's Napoleon. It's going to be all the other Napoleonic movies that have been made over the years and which I've collected. And that's what I'm going to try to speak about. But first of all, let's talk a little bit about Ridley Scott's Napoleon. I'm not going to try to repeat everything that's been said in all the other videos. Okay, my first introduction to Ridley Scott as a director was his 1977 film The Duelists, starring Harvey Keitel and Keith Carradine. And it was about two soldiers who kept up a duel all throughout the Napoleonic Wars. I knew then that this director had great potential. I knew that he would become a great director because this film is a very good one. Photographically, it's good, good story, excellent movie. Later on, Ridley Scott was responsible for doing Gladiator, starring Russell Crowe. The main character is a hypothetical figure, but they do show the Emperor Marcus Aurelius and his son. And it was an outstanding movie. Commercially, it did very well. I still like it today. Very good movie by Ridley Scott. He then followed it up with Kingdom of Heaven, released in 2005. All of these movies I saw at the theater in their premiere, and this is one of my favorite movies on the Crusades. So, looking at Ridley Scott's older films, it was clear to me that he's completely capable of doing a very good and excellent historical film. So, I think when Napoleon failed so badly, disappointed all of us, including myself. And I'm not going to analyze why it failed or anything like that. There's so many videos out there. I will say a little bit about literature available on Napoleon first, before I introduce the films. Now, there's really no excuse for getting the facts about Napoleon's life incorrect in a movie. Yes, and I understand a movie and a screenplay is different than a book. But there's lots of literature out there on Napoleon. I've been reading Napoleonic books since about 1972, so I'm pretty well familiar with the man's life. Napoleonic Wars, Rise and Fall of an Empire, Waterloo, good book. Napoleon and Russia, and a lot of these are big, thick things too. They're not light reading, that's for sure. We've got Citizen Emperor, Napoleon and Power, Napoleon, A Life by Adam Zamowski. There's lots of Napoleonic books out there. And they've even got them in paperback. There's an early paperback on the life of Napoleon. You know, that's a nice, good overall read. And for those of you who are interested in the love life of Napoleon, there's even one by R.F. Delderfield, prominent writer, Napoleon in Love. It's all about the many affairs and loves of Napoleon. So there's no excuse for getting the facts about Napoleon's life incorrect. There's plenty of literature out there. But this movie is supposed to be about the films about Napoleon. So let's start with this first one. Okay, the first real good film about Napoleon was done in 1924 by Abel Gance. It was a silent film, and it came out at a time when movies were perhaps 30 minutes long, 45 minutes long, and Gance's Napoleon, at least the prints we have today, are close to 3.5 hours. It's an excellent film. If you're not into silent films, there's no point you seeing it, but it is a very good film. But it concentrates more on Napoleon at the Siege of Toulon. It ends with the Italian campaign. The BFI, the British Film Institute, recently restored a version of it. It's an excellent copy. Unfortunately, it will not play on any machine I have, since I'm a resident of Canada, living in North America, and this is a Region 2 disc. It will not play. So I had to make a copy from a VHS release. Soundtrack for the 1924 version was done by Carmina Coppola, And that has to do with the fact that the BFI restoration is done by a different composer. Now, when Kevin Brownlow was 14 years old, he saw a print of the old 1924 Napoleon, and I think it kind of changed his life. This book here is about the making of that epic film. I love the book, and thank God people like Kevin Brownlow are around to see that the film was restored properly. The man who played Napoleon was excellent. I don't know if I got his name right. It's Albert Dieudonné. Not sure. He was 24, and he plays an excellent young Napoleon. It's a superb film, and I'm not sure if Ridley Scott ever saw this movie. It is very good. Okay, we fast forward now to 1937, and the movie Conquest, starring Charles Boyer as Napoleon and Greta Garbo as his Polish mistress, Mary Waleska. It's a black and white movie and very good. And Charles Boyer does a very creditable version of Napoleon. One of my favorite scenes is when Napoleon meets a Polish countess who thinks she's living in a different time period. It's a little 10-minute scene and is worth the price of admission. It's a pretty good film. 1937, Conquest. Now we go to 1955, where the director Sacha Guitry did a film on Napoleon. And this one, much like Ridley Scott's, tried to show Napoleon's whole life. Now I think the film is about 2 hours. It's a 2-hour film. It's in color. I haven't got the best copy. I wish there'd be a nice restored copy of this one. But it's pretty good for showing you all of Napoleon's life. A huge task. And they managed to pull it off pretty good. I mean, for 1955, 2-hour film, not bad. The only stars I knew in it were Orson Welles is in it, Marius Schell, and Yves Montand. If you can get a copy of it, do so, part of your collection. If you're not into Napoleon that much, there's no sense getting this film, but it's not bad. Now I'm going to mention this film, even though the film is not about Napoleon. It's called Kohlberg, and it was made by the Germans in 1945, so this is during World War II. I'm amazed that the Germans, and the Nazis in this case, were able to still make huge color films while fighting the Russians in World War II. This one says I can't even say it, apotheosis of the Nazi cinema. Anyway, it's about the Napoleonic invasion of Prussia in the Napoleonic Wars and how one little town, Kohlberg, held up against Napoleon's forces. It's not bad. It's dated by today's standards, of course, but if you haven't seen it and you're into Napoleon, it's worth giving a try. Okay, well, in any discussion of Napoleonic films, we have to discuss War and Peace. This one was made in 1959 and was directed by King Vidor. It starred Audrey Hepburn as Natasha, Mel Ferrer as Prince Andre, and Henry Fonda as kind of a miscast Pierre. It's a good film. Napoleon has cameo appearances in any War and Peace movie, and in this case he was played by Herbert Lom, and he plays a very energetic, nervous kind of Napoleon, but I liked Herbert Lom's portrayal of Napoleon. Not a bad film. I think this one clocks in at about close to 3 hours, 208 minutes. It's not bad. It tells the story of War and Peace fairly well, but it's not really Tolstoy. That wasn't to happen until later, and we'll get to that. Not a bad film, though. You should see it. I should mention that I saw it when I was, about, 10 years old. My sister took me to see the film, and its images of the soldiers freezing and dying in Russia haunted me for the rest of my life. I always remembered those scenes. So, not a bad film at all. Only a year later, in 1960, Abel Gance himself returned to the cinema and decided to do a large epic film exclusively on the Battle of Austerlitz. It's a color production, international, with lots of stars in it. And the guy who played Napoleon, I don't remember his name, he wasn't bad. I like the film, but there's a lot of sound stage scenes, some outdoor battle scenes, which are pretty good, but at least it's a closer depiction of the Battle of Austerlitz than Ridley Scott's, depiction of it. Stars, you might know Claudia Cardinelli, who appeared in Once Upon a Time in the West. Leslie Caron is in it. Jack Palance is actually in it too, and Orson Welles. And Orson Welles plays the inventor Thomas Fulton, who approached Napoleon at one time to invent a steamboat to break the British blockade. Austerlitz, if you can get it, it's hard to find. It took me a while to get this one. There's many copies in French, but I finally got a copy that was in English, and it's part of my Napoleonic collection. Now, in 1965, the Russians finally did an absolute epic version of War and Peace, an outstanding film. I'm going to get the camera focused here. Yes, as I was saying, 1965. Now, when I saw the film in 1974, that was the first time I got to see it, and it played over 2 different nights. So you went to the theater, paid your admission, and saw part 1. And the next night, you went to the theater again, paid admission, and watched part 2. So I always thought it was one long film. It was only when the DVD release came out more recently, I found out that it was not one film. It was actually 4 films. That's the way the Russians filmed it. 4 different films. First film was called Andrei Balkonsky. The second film was Natasha Rostova. Third film was 1812. And the fourth was Pierre Besuhoff. With a running time, it's a long film, 5-6 hours. It's more like a miniseries. So the Russians were doing something that we're now doing in North America, releasing films over several years, like The Lord of the Rings, in several parts spread over several years. But the Russians had done this already back in '65. It's an outstanding film, and has been said that it is one of the most expensive movies ever made, because they had the whole Russian army to do the battle scenes. The Battle of Borodino, I think, alone runs about 45 minutes in the film. It's an excellent movie and is one of my best. I bought more than one version. This is the one that first came out, 5 discs actually, and then this was later restored again, and this is a Blu-ray copy. You can watch it in English or watch it in Russian with the original subtitles. The only thing I regret about this film is the version that I saw, which was a totally English dubbed version with superb narration by Norman Rose, is not available. It was only released in VHS, and I had to make copies from the VHS. And it was a 4:3 ratio, so you didn't get the epic scope of the widescreen. But this is still probably the definitive version of War and Peace. But most people don't know it because it's a Russian import, which is a darn shame. Now in 1970, the same director of War and Peace, Sergei Bondarchuk, made his movie Waterloo. And this is an understated classic. This is an absolute terrific movie. It's about 2 hours, and it is, my opinion, one of the best battle or campaign movies ever made. It shows you in 2 hours the campaign of Waterloo and the battle. I think Rod Steiger plays a great Napoleon, an aging Napoleon, but he was very good. This is an outstanding film. It's about 133 minutes, and I've seen 3 different cuts of this film. I have another one on DVD, and someone on YouTube uploaded the film, and I noticed at least 2 minutes of extra footage on the YouTube version. So there are various prints around. It's not easy to find. But if you do get a copy of it and see it in widescreen, I think you'll appreciate it for the great film that it is. Okay, in 1972, the BBC decided to do their version of War and Peace. But they did it right, in the sense that they made it as really a mini-series. I think it's 13 parts. Anthony Hopkins plays Pierre, and it's an outstanding cast. Its strong points are that in a 13-hour series, you've got lots of time for character development. Actor playing Kutuzov is very good. This version has a booklet explaining all about the film. It's quite good. The Napoleon, he's okay. I guess the drawback with this one is, of course, they're all English actors. So we don't get the sense of Russianness, you might say. But for character development and understanding the book War and Peace, it's one of the best. It's a very good miniseries. I still watch it today. The battle scenes, well, of course, it's a miniseries. They don't have a lot of budget. So the battle scenes are okay. But if you want to know the story of War and Peace, this is the best edition for understanding the characters. BBC War and Peace, 1972. Now, for those of you who are more interested in Napoleon's love life, the BBC once again released Napoleon and Love. Ian Holm played Napoleon, and Billy Whitlaw played Josephine. Other actresses played Mary Waleska. I like this one. Ian Holm isn't quite right for Napoleon, but Ian Holm is such a good actor, he brings his all to the part. It's quite good. I liked it. It's several hours long and concentrates, of course, on Napoleon's love life and his relationships with Josephine, Mary Waleska, and to be sure, there were others. You get to know Napoleon a lot better in this miniseries, unlike Ridley Scott's, where you don't get to know Napoleon at all. Now we jump to 1987, where there was an American co-production called Napoleon and Josephine, a love story. Of course, the story concentrates on the two of them. There are battle scenes, but that's not the high point. The best point is the characterization of their love affair. It's quite good. Jacqueline Bisset is a beautiful looking Josephine. And Armand Assante, whom I like as an actor, he was superb in the movie The Odyssey, playing Ulysses. He's not quite Napoleon, but they dress him like Napoleon did. The haircut is quite correct. And you see a different side of Napoleon. I like it, and I still enjoy watching it today. I think by 2002, they were deciding we need another Napoleon movie, and they decided to do it as a miniseries, which is the way it should be done. Napoleon was played by Christian Clavier, and he was a very good Napoleon too. They had a very good Josephine with Isabella Rossellini. But I thought one of the best parts in the miniseries was John Malkovich playing the consummate politician Talleyrand. He played a superb Talleyrand. Gerard Depardieu played the Minister of Police, Fouché. This is a very good film too. I had to get used to it because when I first saw it, I was a little disappointed. But after watching it again, it grew on me. And again, they show most of Napoleon's life, starting with, I think, the Italian campaign and going right up to Waterloo. With the miniseries, you've got time to develop character and stuff like that. While I think of it, I forgot that in Napoleon and Josephine, they actually show one of the attempted assassinations against Napoleon, which I think they show in this film too. But the Christian Clavier Napoleon was very well done. Okay, now here's a film on Napoleon I found by accident. I'd never really heard of it. It's called Monsieur N. And this one focuses almost exclusively on Napoleon as exile on St. Helena. There, well, there's a young girl, I think she was the daughter of one of the merchants there, English, who would visit Napoleon, and we have her memoirs. So this concentrates mainly on Napoleon on Elba and the legend of Napoleon. Not a bad movie, but yeah, just not a bad movie. Okay, we return to War and Peace. This one was made in 2007, and Clemence Posey played Natasha. Now, when I first heard about this film, I was kind of irked at it. I went, oh, come on, you can't have a blonde Natasha. Natasha can't be blonde. But I must admit, it's not bad. Malcolm McDowell is in it. Forget who he plays. But it's an international production. The guy that played Napoleon wasn't bad. It's a long film, as War and Peace has to be. Yeah, this one clocks in at 6 hours and 45 minutes. So it's long, but you get to know the characters pretty good. One thing I didn't like about it was certain scenes just bothered me, little things that didn't seem right. I remember in one scene where Pierre visits the Rostov homestead. He visits the homestead and comes in through the backyard where all the pigs are and the mud and everything. And I go, what were they thinking? The gentleman from that period would not be coming in through the back door, through the kitchen. But anyway, that's nitpicking. It's a good movie, and you get to know the characters. I don't think it's as strong as the BBC version, made in 1972, but it's pretty good. Okay, now, the last one, again, is let's get that in focus if we can. Still another version of War and Peace. I was excited about this one because I heard it was coming out well in advance, especially when I found out that Paul Dano would be playing Pierre. He plays a very creditable Pierre. Lily James, he's not bad as Natasha, but again, is sort of a blonde. This fellow, James Norton, plays Prince Andre. This one's a Blu-ray copy, outstanding quality. I like it. I've liked every version of War and Peace, but this one, I don't know, is so modern that it doesn't feel right for the period. It tells the story, but emphasizes things I just wouldn't have emphasized. I don't think it's as good as the 1972 BBC version. So that's the last of my reviews of movies on Napoleon. But as a few people have pointed out in Ridley Scott's Napoleon, the Duke of Wellington doesn't come across very well in his film. The Duke of Wellington's character is really well developed in the 1970 Waterloo, which I've already mentioned. Christopher Plummer plays the Duke of Wellington, and he plays a very good part. But George Arliss played the Iron Duke in 1924, and he's a little old to play Wellington, but it's not a bad film. And if you see it today and compare it to the 1970 Waterloo, you'll see that the screenplay bears a large resemblance to the 1970 film. I almost think Bondarchuk must have seen this one and used a little bit of it as a template. It's not a long movie. It's 88 minutes, black and white, and George Arliss always gives a good, witty performance, and it's not bad. Now, this one has nothing to do with Napoleon, really. Why would I put it in here? Well, it stars George Arliss again, and it's called The House of Rothschild, the famous Jewish family who helped finance the Napoleonic Wars. It's a good movie in its own right. Hard to get a copy. I think I had to make a copy off of YouTube or something. But a very good movie in its own right. And the last DVD we're going to look at was, I found this one by accident too, a movie called The Lines of Wellington. It's a Portuguese movie, color, widescreen, good quality. The only actor I really knew was John Malkovich, who you may remember I said played an outstanding Talleyrand. But in this one, he plays Wellington. And as much as I like John Malkovich as an actor, he's not Wellington. They just didn't get Wellington right in this film. It's epic, got some good scenes. I never cared for the title much either. It's not bad. It's not a film I'm going to be watching a lot. But for those of you who like Napoleonic movies, you might enjoy this one. So that's my summation of Napoleonic movies. There are actually still a few that I've yet to collect and having trouble getting copies of. I think one is called The Eagle and the Lion or something. It's about Napoleon on Elba again. So I'm still collecting Napoleonic movies. And what is my favorite? Impossible to rate, but the 1970 Waterloo certainly comes to mind. A lot of Napoleonic enthusiasts love this film. It didn't do well at the time, and it's been accused of preventing Kubrick from making his movie on Napoleon, but that's kind of nonsense. We certainly would have liked to see Kubrick's movie on Napoleon. I would have loved to have seen what he did. I know that the actor Al Pacino was considered for the role. And I thought, whoa, Al Pacino is Napoleon? You know, when I think about it, he could have pulled it off. Anyway, that's my summation of Napoleonic movies. And I hope you get to see some of them. So for the generation that is just growing up seeing Napoleonic movies, and Ridley Scott's is their first one, I urge you to give some of these a try. I think you might like them. Anyway, that's it, and thank you for watching.